Okay, good morning, everyone.
Good morning, sir.
So today, this is the last lecture for 8085, and in today's lecture, we are going to study the complete instruction set of 8085, right? So, in the last lecture, we up till the last lecture, we have already studied various aspects of 8085, ranging from its programming model to the architecture, then the structure of interrupt, then structure of memory, structure of stack, and how the serial operation happens, how timing and control circuits are generated. And we have done some basic interfacing on the last turn. Interfacing a small device to the microprocessor on the last turn, and on the same way, various devices can be interfaced. So we will be learning what all various standard devices are available, but not immediately after this lecture. We will first study 8086, and with 8086 and 8085, some common interfacing devices are there which can be attached and used as either a keyboard or as a screen or maybe as a mouse. So we will be studying them combinedly. So now the purpose of today's lecture is to just study something what is called as addressing mode and the instruction set, right? So let me just start recording the lecture. Yeah, so the purpose of today is just learning what do we mean by addressing modes and instruction set, right? So it's a topic which is fairly elaborate, but in today's lecture, what we are going to do is instruction set is huge. Not huge, it contains 74 instructions. If you compare it with other microprocessors, we can't call it huge. But 74 instructions from perspective of academic reading, they are huge number of instructions. So we won't be, going deep into what every instruction set is doing. We will only illustrate the purpose, and we will move forward, because things like calculating how many memory units, that is how many bytes a particular instruction will take, what will be the timing diagram of that particular instruction, are already covered in previous lectures. So you already know how to draw them for various instructions, or for most of the instructions, right? So let me begin by addressing mode today. So here on the screen, I have written some examples for addressing mode. So we will be just illustrating, first of all, what is addressing mode and what are the types of addressing mode with some examples, right? So addressing mode essentially means whenever we write any command in 8085, right, any instruction in 8085, if that instruction is dealing with your data, then where do you bring the address of that data from? Where do you bring the address of that data from? That's what we mean by addressing mode, right? So if your instruction in 8085 is dealing with some kind of data, then where do you bring the instruction of that, where do you bring the address of that data from, is what we mean by addressing mode. Accordingly, it will be classified into any of the five categories that you see here, right? So addressing mode, it is of five types. First is immediate addressing, then then register addressing, then direct addressing, indirect addressing, which is also called as register indirect addressing, and there is implied or inherent addressing, right? So these are the five types of addressing modes that are available, and we should know what instruction belongs to which category, right? So let me start by a very simple example of immediate addressing mode. In immediate addressing mode, the example could be MVI 20H. This is a simple instruction where you try to move a 1 byte data into the register A. So what is the data upon which we are going to operate here? What is the data
20.
upon which 20? So 20 is going to be moved to A. Where is 20 kept? It is directly available as the part of the instruction. Is it or is it not? Once the instruction is loaded into the instruction register, you don't have to go anywhere. You don't have to go anywhere. This data is immediately available to the command, right? So that is why it is called as immediate addressing mode. You don't have to calculate the address of this data, right? Although every code is kept in externally interfaced memory, so that way, you can say that every code byte is placed in externally interfaced memory. So, there should be memory where we will bring the addresses from. But from the program's perspective, if you see, once this command is loaded inside the instruction register, after loading part, you don't have to again go to the external memory or to the input output device to be able to read this data. This is immediately available as a part of command. So that is why it is called as immediate addressing mode. A command which is similar to MVI A20H for 16-bit operation is LXI-H C200H. L means load, X means it is for 16 bits, and I means immediate data. And it should be loaded into H. Since it is a 16-bit command, so H will be used with its pairing register, which is L register. So LXI-H C200H will load the data C200H into HL register pair, right? So here also the data that you see here, C200H, is immediately available. So it's a 16-bit equivalent example of this command. So that's what we mean by immediate addressing mode. Now let us come to the next example, move A comma B. So what is the data upon which we are operating here? Move A comma B. The data is kept in the B is not the data, B is the register which holds the data. So the data which we are trying to operate upon is kept in B register. What is the address of B register? It has got no address. Registers in 8085 have got no addresses, right? So that is why we call it as register addressing mode. I mean, if you want to look for the data on which you want to operate, you actually have to access some register. So similarly, move C comma D command or move A comma B command will be register addressing mode. So the data on which you want to operate is inside the registers. Now let's come to the third example, LDA2050H. What will this command do? It will load the accumulator with the contents of memory location whose address is 2050H. So now where is the data kept in this particular case? The data is kept in
2050. External memory at the address 2050.
Yeah, at the address 2050. So how did you get the address here? It is 2050 here, right? So it is available in the command itself. So that is why you call it as direct addressing. Means the address is directly available. So there is a difference between this direct addressing mode and the immediate addressing mode. Immediate addressing mode is there when the data is directly available inside the command, and the addressing mode will be called as direct addressing if the address is available in the command, right? So if the data is available in the command, you don't even have to think about address. So it's immediate addressing. And if the address is directly available in the command, then you will say that it is direct addressing. So a similar example could be STA2050H. So it also has the address which is already there in the command, and this command will simply store the contents of accumulator into externally interfaced memory whose memory location is 2050H, right? Now let's come to this command, LDAXB. So what will it do? This is a LDAX. Since X is written, it's a 16-bit command. It will load the accumulator with 1 byte data. And where will it bring that data from? It will bring that data from the externally interfaced memory whose address is kept in BC register pair, right? So the data that we are trying to operate is still kept in the externally interfaced memory. But where are we bringing its address from? We are bringing its address from a register pair. So it's not directly available. It is kept in some register pair, and that is why it is called as indirect addressing, or alternatively it is called as register indirect addressing, because indirectly the address has been kept in a register pair, right? So it is called as register indirect addressing. Then RAL, we are going to study this instruction today. It is used to, since you know accumulator will have any number, that number will be in, it can be treated as a binary number with combinations of ones and zeros. So this RAL command will be rotating the bits of that accumulator to the one position by left, right? So the bit number 0 will become bit number 1, bit number 1 will become bit number 2, and so on and so forth. Bit number 7 will pop out of that and it will go into the carry flag, right? The carry flag's content, they will be emptied and they will be placed at the position of bit number 0. So there will be a rotation of the binary content of the register through the carry flag in the left direction. So that is the purpose of RAL command. And similarly for the right direction, you have RAR command. Here the data is already present in accumulator, and you don't have to bring the data from externally interfaced memory, and it is not directly visible in this command like in this MVI A20H, where 20H was the data. Here the data is not visible, but it is present in accumulator itself. So that is why it is called as implied or invariant addressing mode, because the address is implied by the command itself, right? So it is kept in accumulator. That's why we call it as implied or invariant addressing mode. So is this simple enough? How to judge the addressing mode of any instruction? Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Okay. So now this is all about the addressing mode. So this is just a theoretical concept. You might be asked in your objective examination to just identify the addressing mode for a given instruction, right? One important point here is this move A comma M, right? And this move A comma B. These commands, they look similar. These commands look similar, but move A comma M is covered under indirect addressing or register indirect addressing because, can somebody explain this? These two commands are similar. They are moving data from one register to another, but still the commands which involve this M register, these commands are kept in indirect addressing category. Can somebody explain this?
M will hold the address.
M will not hold the address. M will not hold the address.
HL pair.
Yes. Yeah, HL pair will hold the address. So since HL pair is holding the address is not directly seen in the command. So that is why it has to be indirect. And since HL pair is holding it, so it is register indirect addressing mode, right? Register indirect addressing mode. So that is why these kind of instructions which look similar, they may also sometimes have some different addressing mode. And the textbook that I have given to you for reading, you can see that for 8085 there is a very nice kind of small tables for every command, and in those tables they will illustrate how many number of bytes they will take, how many numbers of T states they will take, what carry flags they will be affecting, and what is the addressing mode. So if you scroll that textbook, the section where every instruction is explained, you will get adequate details of every instruction, right? So you can have a look at that, right? And there is one more group which is not covered here. I mean, that cannot be called as a addressing mode because there are some instructions which do not deal with any data. For example, HLT instruction, it is not dealing with any data. So that's machine control instruction. But since it does not have any addresses, so we have not covered it under addressing mode. So there are 5 types of addressing mode in 8085, right? So let's now come to the 74 commands that we have in 8085, and let us see what is the purpose of them. So we will be frequently using them in our laboratories, but since 74 commands are not fully used, so let us talk about them one by one, and there will be some familiar commands and some new commands. So you see this data transfer operation. I mean, in 8085, we have grouped the command into various types. Some of them will be doing data transfer operations. Some of them will be doing arithmetic operations. So the group that you see on the screen now is data transfer group, right? So let me discuss the commands one by one here in this data transfer group. For some of the commands, you must be already aware. For example, move RD, comma RS. So RD means destination register and RS could be source register. So these registers, as you already know, could be A, B, C, D, E, and HL. So this is a very simple command for copying the data from source register to destination register. After execution of this instruction, both of the registers will have the same data, and the direction of movement of the data will be from source to destination. And similarly, you have this command move M, comma R or move R, comma M. So since the address here is kept in HL pair register, so these are usually written separately, and although they have the same format, RD, comma RS, right? So we are already aware of move command, so I'm not elaborating them further. Then MVI R, comma data. We have also used this command very frequently. It will be moving a 1 byte data into the register that has been specified. So this register could be A, B, C, D, E, HL, and for M we have written it separately because of course HL pair contains the address of that. So we are aware of these commands, right? Now the next command is LXI RP 16-bit data. So it is similar to MVI command, and since it is having an X, so it will be dealing with 16-bit data, and I means immediate data will be copied. It will be loaded into the register pair that you are specifying. So the 16-bit data or 2-byte data will be loaded into the register pair that you specify, and the register pair could be either HL, BC or DE pair. And to be able to specify a register pair, you actually have to specify only its first register. For example, if you want to copy the data in BC register pair, then you only have to write LXI B, comma some 16-bit data, right? Then LDA and STA you are already aware of, so we are not going to discuss LDA and STA again. These are only used for loading the data from accumulator to a specific memory location, and STA will be doing the opposite thing, right? Then we come to LHLD and SHLD. These are also the similar commands, LHLD and SHLD. So what it will do is this HL pair register is there in both, and L stands for loading. So the address that is being given to you here, from that address, it will be bringing 16-bit data, and it will be keeping them in HL pair register. And SHLD will be doing the opposite job. It will have some data in HL register pair, and to the address that is specified in command, it will copy that 16-bit data into 2 memory locations starting from that address that has been specified, right? And in what fashion that data will be copied? The higher order register, that is the H register's data, will be copied to the higher order address, and lower order register, that is L register, its data will be copied to the lower order address. And copying or transferring data in this way, we call it as little endian format, ENDIAN, little endian. There is something called as big endian format also, where the reverse of this is done. But if the data is copied in such a way that the higher order byte of the register pair, when it is copied to the memory, it is copied to the higher address, and lower order byte is copied to the lower order address, then we call that format as little endian format. And in 8085, we will be using little endian format by default, right? So are these commands clear to you? I mean, LDA and STA, their 16-bit equivalents are LHLD and SHLD. So we haven't used them now, but you may use them in your program if you feel like, right? So now you have already seen these commands, LDAX RP and STAX RP.
Sir?
Yeah.
So yes, what did you tell about the name? Little Endian?
Little Endian, ENDIAN, little endian format. That format simply means whenever you want to transfer the data, the higher order registers will be copied to higher order addresses, and lower order registers will be copied to lower order addresses. Is it okay?
Yes, sir.
We have done an example of this little endian format in the first laboratory also, where we tried to learn stack, and we tried to copy some data from there. But there I have demonstrated this, but I haven't given probably this name little endian there, right? So So LDAX and STX command are already known to us. They are 16-bit equivalents of LDA and STA. And here the data of the accumulator, which is only 1 byte data, will be copied to the address which is specified by this register pair. So we are already aware of these two commands. So from this LDA, STA, LHLD, SHLD, LDAX, and STX, these are similar kind of commands. But the nature of copying the data, I mean, in LDA and STA and LDAX and STX, only 1 byte data is copied. The manner of specifying the addresses is different in LDAX and LDA, right? Here the address is directly available. So, and in the next commands, the address is not directly available, right? Now, this XCHG is a very important command. It is used to exchange the data between HL register pair and DE register pair. BC register pair is not used in this calculation. XCHG means exchange. It is used to exchange the data of HL register pair with DE register pair. So sometimes it might happen that in a program you would like to sort an array, and for sorting an array, there are various algorithms which are used. One such algorithm is bubble sort. Are you all aware of bubble sort?
Yes, sir.
So in bubble sort, one essential step is you will be exchanging the data between two data structures. Once you find that some condition is satisfied, some number is less than or greater than something, then you will be exchanging the data. So to facilitate those kind of operations, you have got this XCHG, which will be exchanging the data between HL register pair and DE register pair. And in and out command we have already seen on the last turn. What is it used for? What is in and out command used for? Can somebody elaborate? On the last turn we have seen this command.
Sir, in command is used for external device input and out for giving instruction to output device.
Yeah, and they are used in which memory mode? They are used in memory mapped input output or input output mapped input output.
Input output mapped input.
Yeah.
Output mode input.
Yeah, that's true, right? So here we are already aware of this in and out command, so I'm not further elaborating that, right? So this is the data transfer operation. I mean, if you were to transfer the data, these are the set of commands which are available here. Now let's come to the arithmetic operation group. So arithmetic operation, see, in 8085 we have a very minimal set of operations, only addition, subtraction, and increment, decrement. No multiplication, no division. If you even want to do some addition and multiplication, you have to make some programs. So we could tolerate this because this was the very initial microprocessor, and that time making program of multiplication was also something very big. As in today's world, everybody is fascinated about machine learning and artificial intelligence. So at that time, even making the program for multiplication was considered as a very good research, right? So, we will come to know shortly that 8085 is used as the main microprocessor of the system. And there is something which is called as arithmetic coprocessor. Its name is 8087. So there is a dedicated IC for doing arithmetic operations or mathematical operations, which is the name of the IC is 8087. So inside a computer, if you really want to do some sophisticated mathematical operations, so they used 8085 as main microprocessor. Together with it, they used 8087. Arithmetic coprocessor. It is also a microprocessor, but it is mainly made for doing mathematical operations, right? So we are not discussing it as of now, but these arithmetic operations which are available in 8085 are only addition and its variants, subtraction and its variants, and increment and decrement operations, right? So we are already aware of this ADDR command. R could be any register. ADDM command. So both of these commands, what they will do, they will simply take a 1 byte data and add it to the accumulator and store the result in accumulator itself, right? So similar to these ADDR and ADDM command, there is ADDC and ADDCR and ADCM command. So this is, let's talk about this ADCR command. It stands for, I mean, it is similar to ADDR command. The only point of difference is it will add the contents of R accumulator together with the carry flag and store the result in accumulator. This is the only point of difference, right, between ADDR and ADCR. So it will store, it will add the accumulator as well as the register which is specified here together with the carry flag. So these three things will be added, and whatever is the result of addition, it will be kept inside the accumulator itself. And why we have made such a command? So this command is present because if you suppose want to add two 16-bit numbers, then there might be a possibility of having a carry from lower 4 bits of the number, that is lower nibble of the number, to the higher nibble of the number. And when you do the addition for the higher nibble, you have to take the carry into consideration. So in such operations, you might have this ADCR command or ADCM command, right? So then you have this command ADI data. So it will add the immediate data to the accumulator, right? So this data is directly present here, and similarly you have ACI data. So this will add the immediate data together with the carry flag to the accumulator and store the result in accumulator back. And DADRP, we have already discussed this command probably in some laboratory, that it will be used for your 16-bit calculation, DADRP. And what is the default register in case of DADRP? Okay, first of all, what is the purpose of DADRP command, and what are some special points about it? Could somebody elaborate? We have discussed this in one laboratory session. Anyone?
For addition of 16-bit numbers.
Yeah, it is used for addition of 16-bit numbers. But since 16-bit numbers cannot be, the 16-bit numbers cannot be copied into accumulator register alone. So for that purposes, the default register becomes HL pair register. And we have seen this command in one of the laboratories. Yeah, so as I can see here, only 80 people are available and rest of all are sleeping. That's very nice. Okay. So this is your addition command and its variants. Similarly, you have got subtraction command. Similar to ADDR, you have got SUBR. It will be subtracting register R from the accumulator. So the operation that will be done here is A minus R, and the result will be stored in A again. So similarly, you have got SUBM. Then similar to this ADC command, which considers the carry flag, we have SBB command. This SBB command, it considers borrow, right? So the carry flag is borrow flag also for the purposes of subtraction. So it will be doing this subtraction by considering the borrow. So if you are subtracting something, there will be situations when you need to take a borrow from the forward position to be able to carry out that subtraction. So in that case, that borrow flag is also considered. In a similar way, we are considering this carry flag here. So we have got these two variants, SBBR and SBBM. Then similar to ADI data, where immediate data is added to the accumulator, you have SUI data. So subtract the immediate data from the accumulator and store the result in accumulator back. So, and again, similar to this HCI command, where the immediate data and carry flag are added to the register, you have the same thing for borrow and the data. So that is SBI data, right? And like DAD command, we do not have a 16-bit equivalent here. So for that, we have to write some program if we want to do that. But that could be easily written because you have this SBBR command. So instead of having a equivalent like DAD for addition, we could easily write the program by using this SBBR command. So this is addition, subtraction, and now we have got this increment operator, INR-R, INR-M, then DCR for decrement, R, DCR-M. For 16-bit calculations, you have got INX-RP, DCX-RP, and this is another command which is called as decimal adjust the accumulator. So if in a register, that is accumulator register, whatever result you see, it is in hexadecimal format. But there is another format which is known as your decimal format, or if you take a 4-bit decimal format, it is called as binary coded decimal. Have you all heard about BCD numbers, binary coded decimal numbers?
Yes, sir.
So binary coded decimal numbers are essentially the binary equivalents of any number in 4-bit format, right? So whatever result you receive in accumulator, if instead of seeing that in hexadecimal format, you want to see that in BCD format, then this DAA command is used. Decimal adjust the accumulator. So the decimal, BCD number will be shown instead of the hexadecimal equivalent, right? So this is the small arithmetic operation set that this microprocessor has got. And to be very honest, tell me.
So DA where all happen?
You want to understand DAA again?
Yes, sir.
See, whenever you keep some numbers in accumulator register, they are by default visible in hexadecimal format, right? But for some operations, some kind of special operations, you might to see the decimal equivalent of that, right? And for representing a number in decimal also, there are various formats. One common format is binary coded decimal, BCD number, right? And BCD number, if you want to see your output in the form of BCD number, then you don't have to make an additional program. You can just type DAA and no operand after that is needed to be typed. You just type DAA, whatever is the content of the accumulator, which is currently displayed in hexadecimal format. After execution of this command, the format of that will be changed to binary coded decimal number, right? So if you are not aware of what BCD number is, you can easily see it on any of your textbooks or maybe on the internet. So it's a simple format of displaying the numbers, right?
Sir, then why it is kept in the column of increment and decrement?
It's not, these columns are not designed by keeping something in mind that this is one group. So this complete thing is arithmetic group. So this is not an increment or decrement operation. It's a command which does not suits into any of these 3 columns. So I just kept it in the end, right? So it's not grouped according to something. It's just a different command. So maybe I will just mark it in a different color. Happy?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So now let's move on to logical operations. So, okay, one thing that I was illustrating was even if this subtraction command is not present, anything and everything inside computers could be done by using these simple addition operation, their variants, and some shifting commands, right? So if you see in essence, a computer does not do anything except addition operation and data shifting operation or data movement operation, right? So by addition, can you also imitate subtraction? Is there any method to imitate subtraction by using addition?
Yes, sir.
Which
Yes,
one
sir.
is that?
By adding to
So to
complement.
add it with this with its complement, yeah.
Yeah, so you have got the method of ones complement, twos complement, or in general r's complement, where addition operation can be used to emulate the subtraction operation. And if addition and subtraction are done, can you do multiplication and division also? We have already done that in laboratory, right? And you can just make a simple program inside loops where addition is done multiple number of times so that it will become multiplication, right? So only if addition operation and data movement operations are present inside a computer, then that computer can do anything, right? So whatever you name it, whether it is web browsing or playing a game on your computer, every operation is addition. Every operation is addition. There is nothing called as subtraction or nothing called as multiplication, because computer essentially does this addition operation and data shift operation, right? So addition is the core of computers. But whatever instructions you see extra, they are just to facilitate your mathematical understanding, right? So otherwise, if you are good enough in coding, you can just write a subroutine for subtraction also by using these set of commands only. But as you know, we have sophisticated computers, so these are some basic mathematical operations, so they have to be there. In 8086, you will see that there is a command for multiplication also, division also, and whatnot. So as soon as the computer becomes more modern, you will have the instruction set and it will increase in size. So that is there. But at the core, only addition and data movement operations are sufficient, right? Now let's come to logical operations. Logical operations means and or not. You already are aware of these operations. So we will just discuss what all is available in 8085. So in 8085, you can see that AND operation is available by the name of these cousin commands. Then there is OR operation, which is available by the name of these cousin commands. Then there is an operation which is NOT, which is given by this CMA command, or complement the accumulator command. So AND gate, OR gate, NOT gate is available. And together with that, one additional gate which is called as XOR gate is available, XRA, by the name of XRA and its cousins, right? And after that, you have got some bit rotation commands that are given in this group, and there are some comparison commands. So this is the set of logical operations. So not all logic gates are present. So can somebody name all the logic gates that you know apart from AND, OR, NOT?
NOR, NAND, XOR.
Nor NAND,
XOR,
XOR.
XNOR.
Okay. So how many logic gates are there for binary numbers? How many logic gates can be there at max? I mean, AND gate, OR gate, NOR gate, XOR gate, NAND gate, and XOR gate. Oh, sorry, that's XOR gate only, and an XNOR gate. So how many logic gates are there? Is there some limit, or these are the only gates that are present that I just spoke?
So 7 basic.
No, not basic or universal. I'm just talking about how many maximum logic gates are available.
So
If
there
you
isn't
what?
there
Infinite.
isn't limit.
Infinite.
Okay, some answer is infinite. Other answer was
So there isn't any limit. That is infinite only.
infinite number of logic gates. No, there are 16 number of logic gates for binary logic, right? And how do I arrive at this conclusion? Maybe we can discuss it in laboratory today. There are 16 number of logic gates which are possible for these two things. Okay, let me just explain you the logic. If there are two bits, how many possible outcomes can you have by operating on 2 bits? Think in terms of AND gate. If you have AND gate, how many combinations out of 2 bits can you make? I mean 0, 0, 0, 1, 1, 0, and 1, 1. So corresponding to every input, so corresponding to every input, you might have an output. So 4 outputs are possible, right? I mean, for AND gate, the output would be for 0, 0, you will get 0. For 0, 1, you will get 0. For 1, 0, you will get 0. And for 1, 1, you will get 1. Isn't this the truth table of AND gate?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So only 4 outputs are possible for any gate that you see, right? So 2 are inputs and 4 will be output. So out of 4 outputs, how many combinations can you make? 2 raised to the power of 16 combinations only. What all I am saying to do is, suppose this is 0, 0. This is 0, 1. This is 1, 0. Sorry. This is 1, 0. And this is 1, 1. So the output that you get here is for AND gate, if you talk about it, is 0, 0, 0, and this is 1. Isn't it?
Yes.
Is it or is it not? For OR gate, what will be the output? This will be 0, this will be 1, and this will be 1 again, and this will be 1. Is it or is it not? For this input combination, this is the output of OR gate. This is for AND gate, and this is for OR gate. Is it or is it not?
Yes, sir.
So there are only 4 bits. So how many combinations can you make out of 4 bits?
16.
16 combinations, right? 16 combinations can be made. So this is just one combination, 0, 0, 0, 0, 1. 0 1 0 0 1 1 1. So there could be one combination which would be 0 0 0 0, or there,
4.
yeah. What are you saying? Okay, which is this combination? 0 1 1 0. Which is this combination? Is it XOR or XNOR for these two inputs? 0 1 1 0. For dissimilar, it is a XOR gate, right? So this is a combination for XOR gate. So some combinations have name, and this combination has also got a name, but it is not usually taught in digital logic, because what's the purpose of having any gate which is giving you all 0 output? But you can see here that there are 4 bits, so that way logically only 16 combinations can be made. So the basic, the logic gates, they could be at max 16 in number, at max 16 in number. So you have heard gates by the name of AND, OR, NOT, XOR, XNOR, and NAND and NOR. So all of these gates are popular gates, but there are some gates called as implication, constant. So these are also the names which are given in the book of Morris Mano. Probably you have also read the same book in your digital logic design course. So you can see that there are only 16 possible gates. However, if you have 3 logic gates, AND, OR, and NOT, then you can synthesize any logic in this universe, right? Or if you have 2 universal gates. What are universal gates?
NAND and OR.
NAND and NOR. So if you have NAND and NOR, then you can also synthesize any logic in this universe. So here a combination of AND, OR, and NOT gate is available together with XOR operation, because XOR operation is used for comparisons a lot of time for finding out the similarity or dissimilarity. So that is also given there. So let's discuss them one by one. ANA stands for ANDing, and register R will be ANDed with the accumulator. And this is a bit by bit operation, right? So whatever is the binary equivalent of the number which is kept in the register A, it will be bit by bit ANDed with the register R which is written here. Similarly, ANA-M command is there, and ANI stands for AND the immediate data with accumulator, bit by bit. On the same notes, you have got ORA-R command, which will do the OR operation between the register R and the accumulator bit by bit. Then ORA-M command, ORI data command. So these are the cousin commands for OR operation. So AND is there, OR is there. And for NOT operation, you have got this CMA, complement the accumulator. So every bit of accumulator will be flipped once this command is executed. And this can happen only inside the accumulator, because for NOT operation, you only require one input. So the CMA stands for complement the accumulator. So this is AND gate, OR gate, and NOT gate. And similarly, you have got XOR gates also. What is the property of XOR gate? For similar bits, what will be the output?
0.
0. And for dissimilar bits, the output would be 1. So that gate is also present here. Now, these are the logic gates which are present. These commands that you see here are for the rotation of the accumulator in binary format. So let me start discussing by using this RAL command, right? So let us say that in accumulator an 8-bit data is being kept. So this is 10, 10, 10, and 10. So these are 8 bits which are there in accumulator. And there is one carry flag. Let us say its value is 1, right? So this is your carry flag, and this is your accumulator, right? So now when you execute this RAL command, what will happen is, since L is there, so it is for the data movement in left direction. So data will move in left direction, and R stands for rotate the accumulator to the left. So how will the data be rotated? This 0th bit will become the first bit will become the second bit will become the third bit, and so on and so forth. The last bit, it is spilled out of the accumulator, so it will be going to the carry flag, and the bit of this carry flag will go to this 0th bit of the accumulator, which was empty. So after the execution of this RAL command, the contents that you will have in carry flag would be 1, because MSB was 1, so it was copied here. Then you will have 0, 1, 0, 1, 0, 1, 0, and 1, because this 1 has been gone to this particular position. So is this command understood? So this 0 is not visible because ultimately before a number, if it is 0, then the Excel automatically does not display it because it does not have any meaning. So there is a 0 which is written before this number. So is this command understood? RAL.
Yes.
Similarly, you have for right rotation RAR command, right? And whenever RAL or RAR are there, the rotation will happen through the carry flag. Through the carry flag, the rotation will happen. Interestingly, RLC and RRC command will also be doing the same thing. But this time the rotation will not happen through the carry flag. And this is a little bit confusing because C is there. So one might feel that, carry flag should be involved in these two particular commands. But in 8085, it is a little bit confusing that whenever C is written, C is not involved in the rotation part, right? So if you want to use this RLC command, after the execution of this RLC command, the output would be 010101, and this last will be replaced by this particular one. Carry flag will not be involved in rotation when you use RLC command or RRC command. However, carry flag will be involved in the sense that, see this accumulator, let me just erase out this result. And let me take the contents of carry flag as 0 here, right? So if you will rotate this accumulator only without considering this carry flag, what will happen is the output would be like this: 0 1 0 1 0 1 0 1, because this last bit has moved on to this particular position and every other bit has shifted to left. Carry flag is not involved, so we do not bother about that. But whatever has spilled out from the accumulator, so in this case this MSB has spilled out from the accumulator, so it will be copied to the carry flag. It will be copied to the carry flag. Carry flag will not be involved in any rotation, but whatever has been spilled out of the accumulator, MSB of the accumulator, it will be copied to the carry flag. So carry flag is still involved, but it is not involved in rotation. It is involved in copying the spilled over bit with every bit rotation that is happening, right? So this is RLC and RRC commands. So these are all rotation commands. Can you guess what could be the use of having such an operation inside microprocessor? For what purposes these rotation commands could be used?
Multiplication, division.
How?
So by left, for example, by left shifting, it multiplies by 2.
Yeah, that's very true. Suppose if you have this number 0000 and 0001. So if you shift, the value of this number here is 1. If you shift it one bit to the left, it will become 0000 and 0010. So what will it become? The value of it will become 2. Next time when this bit will be shifted to the third position, its value will become 8. So, 4. So 1, 2, 4, 8. That way you can generate a series. Right, so we will see some program of this kind in our laboratory also, right? So for that purpose, it is used. Yeah, tell me.
Sir, it will be a simple left shift or circular left shift?
As I told you, it is a circular left shift. Na? In the case of any instruction that you have seen here, with or without carry is a different matter. But every instruction will be doing a circular left shift because whatever is spilled out of the MSB, it is copied into the carry register, and carry register's content will be coming to the least significant bit if you are using RAL or RAR commands. However, if you are using RLC and RRC commands, carry register is not involved in rotation. The rotation is still circular, right? And carry register is used for copying the spilled over data from MSB. So rotation is always circular in this, right? Understood? Okay. So now the important set of commands that is left here is this comparison set of commands, because to be able to implement if-else statements, this comparison command will be very helpful. So in C programming, you have if-else statement. One of the equivalents of that can be thought of as this comparison command here. So what will this CMP-R command will do? So it will subtract register which is specified here from the accumulator. So the operation of A minus R will happen here, and accordingly the flag bits will be set. But the result of doing that subtraction operation will not be stored back to the accumulator. So comparison operation is essentially subtraction operation. But the result of subtraction is not stored in accumulator after subtraction. Only the appropriate flag registers are set. Is this understood? Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Comparison operation
Sir,
is
what
just
was the
yeah.
sir, what was the use flag? What you have
See,
told about the flag here?
comparison command is like subtraction command, where the subtraction will happen and the appropriate flag registers will be set. Because if subtraction is there, it might be that you are subtracting a bigger number from a smaller number. So in that case, zero flag. In that case, sign flag has to be set, or the result of subtraction might be zero. So in that case, zero flag might be set. So flag registers will be affected, of course, by this subtraction operation, but the result of subtraction, which was to be stored in accumulator in the regular subtraction command, will not be stored in accumulator. Only comparison will be done. And you can see the comparisons result in flag register. The result of subtraction will not be stored back in the accumulator, because this is what we will be doing while comparing two numbers. If we want to compare two numbers, you will simply subtract them and you will look at the result of subtraction. If the result is negative, you can say that the greater number is subtracted from a smaller number. If the result is positive, you will say that a smaller number is subtracted from the larger number. And if the result is zero, you will say that both of the numbers are equal. So this can be observed from the flag register only. You don't have to actually see the result. If sign flag is set, then you can say that a larger number was subtracted from smaller number. If zero flag is set, both of the numbers were equal. If sign flag is not set, a smaller number is subtracted from larger number, and so on and so forth. So you don't need to see the result. You only need to see the flag registers to be able to guess the operation of this subtraction command. Is it or is it not?
Yes, sir.
So that way this comparison operation will happen. CMP-R, CMP-M and CPI compare the immediate data with the accumulator. Accumulator is the default register. Now there are some branching instructions. I mean jump instructions and call instructions. They are combinedly called as branching instructions. So you have already seen various forms of jump instructions. This is the regular jump instruction, which is unconditional. You write this statement JMP and some address
Sir.
after that. Yeah. Yeah, tell me.
So you haven't told that complement operator.
Complement operator, which operator?
CMC, STC. Complement,
Okay, I
sir,
have-
CMC.
Okay. Sorry, this is CMC, which is complement the carry flag. So in some operations, you might forcibly want to complement the carry flag. So there is this CMC operation, and STC means set the carry flag. So your carry flag will be set to 1, whatever is its value, be it 1 or 0. Setting someone means making its value as 1. So set the carry flag. Complement the carry flag matlab whatever is the value of carry flag, it will be flipped and stored. This set the carry flag means its value will be made 1 irrespective of whatever its value was earlier. So these have also got their own applications and they were frequently used. So there is a different command for that, CMC and STC, right? So carry flag sometimes needs to be forcibly set or reset. And you will see this when you will perform an operation of subtraction using 2's complement method, and there for the interpretation of results you might want to use these two commands. So that is the usage of these two commands, right? Now again we come to these branching operations. You have already seen these jump instructions. JC stands for jump on carry, JNC stands for jump on no carry, JZ for jump on 0, jump on no 0, then jump on parity, jump on minus, that is jump on negative. JM stands for jump on minus. And this JP is for jump when parity is even, jump when parity is odd for JPO. PCHL means copy the content of HL register into PC register, right? So these are the jump instructions which we have already seen. So they work on the basis of the flag register that we have. So I am not further elaborating them. This JMP address is an unconditional jump. It won't check the flag register. It will just jump to the location whatever has been specified. And these instructions, they will check the flag register, and accordingly they will make a jump to the address which is specified after these, right? If that condition is met. So similar to jump instruction, we have call instructions, and call instructions can also be conditional call instructions or unconditional call instructions. So this unconditional call instruction we have seen while writing functions. Call some particular address. So your function will jump to that particular location by keeping the return address onto the stack. And similarly, you can have call on carry. So this is a conditional call. Whenever carry appears, you have to call a function, and if no carry appears, you don't have to call that particular function, right? So to be able to return from these functions, you have these statements. RET is simple return, unconditional return. So if the function is complete, you have to return. There could be conditional returns also. Return on carry, return on no carry, return on zero, return on no zero, and so on and so forth, right? And it is not mandatory to use call on carry with return on carry. You could use call on carry with return on zero. Call on minus with return on no carry. So any combination could be used from this left to right side, right? Depending upon what suits your program. And then there is this reset instruction, reset n, which we have studied in context of interrupts. So this n can have a value of 0 to 7. And this is used to implement software interrupts which are non-maskable. They have got highest priority and they are synchronous in nature. So if you want to make interrupts from software, this RST n instruction is there, and you're all already aware of that because we have used it frequently in our laboratory as well as in lecture sessions, right? So these are branching operation group, and the last group that we have here is stack and machine control operation, right? So for stack, we have already read push and pop instructions. So stack operates in 16-bit operation fashion and in little endian format. So this is what we have already seen. And then there is this command called as SPHL. Similar to PCHL, it will copy the contents of HL pair register into the stack pointer. So if you want to initialize a stack, we have seen this command. Then there is this XTHL command. So this XTHL command will exchange the top of stack with HL register. So this is also useful in some of the programs where the top of stack, which is of 16 bits or 2 bytes or 2 locations in stack, it will be exchanged with the HL pair in little endian format. So sometimes you might need to do it when you make heap sort or when you do operations of sorting, which also involves stack. So there, this XTHL command will come very handy, right? Then there is an instruction NOP. It will not perform any operation. It is usually inserted in your programs to be able to, increase the duration in which that program operates. Then there is a HLT operation. You're already aware of this. EI is for enabling the interrupts. DI is for disabling the interrupts. So we will be seeing these two commands in today's lab session. So if this EI command is executed, then the interrupts will be served by the microprocessor. And if it is not executed, these interrupts will not be served by the microprocessor. So it will only affect the maskable interrupts. Non-maskable interrupts will anyway be served by the microprocessor, right? And DI is for disabling the interrupts. You are already aware of this rim and sim command. So they are used for interrupt handling as well as serial input output. So I have displayed the format of this in one particular laboratory, right? So this completes the set of instructions that we have got for 8085, and you can just count them. They are all 74, and out of these 74 instructions, you can make 246 combinations as such, right? So in today's lecture, we have covered only addressing modes and the instructions that we have got. We have just given a brief overview of that. And can you now calculate how much time does a program takes when it gets executed? Because you already are aware of T states of the program. And I said that every T state is one click of the clock. If the frequency of clock is known, then 1 by that frequency will be the time which every T state will take. And you can already calculate T states for every instruction. So total number of T states multiplied by the value of 1 over frequency. Will it not give you the time that a program takes to execute? Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
So that way you can also calculate the time a particular program takes to execute, and you will be surprised to know, or you will be happy to know that faster your processor is, faster your programs will be executed, right? So this is it for this particular lecture. In today's laboratory session, we will be doing some interesting experiments. So do attend the laboratory. And I still can see 89 people in this lecture. So now I have to report this incident to the authorities because not all people are attending this. So this is not for people who are attending. For people who are not attending, they should be worried now because this time I will be supplying the attendance list to the authorities. Most of the people are not attending the classes. So this is something that I will report to the authorities. The CR may inform the people who are not present in today's lecture. So anyway, I will see you in the laboratory session today, and we will do some interesting experiments there. So any doubts in today's session?
Sir,
Yeah.
sir, most of the students are not able to access the assignment on Microsoft Teams. So please share the assignment on WhatsApp.
I have already shared the assignment on Teams. Why is it not accessible? Anyway, I will share it on WhatsApp.
We can see the questions that you have shared on the lab folder, but we can't open the assignment section. That's the problem we faced in the previous semester too.
Okay, that might be because we have created various channels, right? So in those channels, you are not able to access those assignments. So not a problem. I will discuss in the laboratory what assignments I have kept, and I will put them on WhatsApp also so that you can start making your file. But still, you are able to see the files that I have put in lab folder in my own channel.
Yes, we can access them.
Okay, so only that part needs to be done. And for submission, I will create another link. And we will discuss about how to do the assignments in this laboratory. In today's laboratory, I will tell you what to write and what not to write, and together with some very interesting experiments. Okay. So, any other doubts? Any other doubts, anyone?
No, sir.
Okay, so I'm closing the session.